Hi, welcome to Higher PhD's Alternative Career Path Success Stories, ACPSS series. I am the moderator today. My name is Connie. And Higher PhD is a nonprofit organization which aims to help advanced degree holders by providing them necessary resources for successful career transition. And ACPSS is short for Alternative Career Path Success Stories, as I mentioned previously, which aims to expose our audience to the numerous career possibilities outside of academia. So this is one of our numerous initiatives, and we do have other type of initiatives to help advanced degree holders to unlock your potentials and navigate career paths. So be sure to check out our website down below. And today I'm super excited to have Leesa with us, and she is a consultant for education technology. Now I'm so curious of what this is about. Leesa, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
Hi, Connie. Thanks for your introduction. So excited to talk about today how I've always mentioned how education shapes technology and how technology shapes learning. And so most recently, I've worked as an implementation manager, developing both software and curriculum that's based in the literacy program, so teaching students who are learning how to read. It could be students with learning differences, K through 12 students, and adult learners, multilingual learners. And so my role was to work with educators and leaders across the US and international as well to help them implement the software and curriculum into their schools and understand what their goals are to make it a success, to train both the teachers and educators on the software and to help their students learn about how to best log in and make it an intuitive process to help them learn as a whole. And I also work with other nonprofits across education and technology as well to help support the community and overall goals.
So what is your PhD education background?
Yeah, so overall, I have a background in social science, so it's a sociology major as an undergraduate, and I graduated recently with my PhD in organizational development and change, and my doctoral concentration was in media, technology, and innovation. And so I've always felt at home where learning takes place and how our way of learning shapes resources and our access to resources can shape our potential. And so my dissertation and research area focus was how do we ideally successfully prepare students, including individuals who might have limited access to resources, bridging that digital divide, and how do they prepare ideally for post-secondary education, whether it's undergraduate, graduate school, and then for careers. So sort of that cradle to career focus area, and how do we provide that strong foundational support through programs, through policies, and best practices. And so with my social science background or foundation, my education was based in focus in organizations and equalities at Santa Clara U, and my minor was in science, technology, and society with a focus on IT. And so I do remember we had a guest speaker who's an alumni of our school who talked about when we're out there working in teams, you have engineers and you have social scientists who study the populations and what they need and bring back those needs to the designers and the developers. And I always found that a really interesting process that I always wanted to be a part of. And then I grew into learning more about being the subject matter kind of expert in the field of education through an Ed Leadership Master's. And then through that master's program, I learned about the doctorate program at Fielding towards a human development pathway master's, so a human-centered approach to technology. And then leading into what I'm doing now with some opportunities to collaborate with some colleagues and folks, including the most recent research fellowship I was awarded called the Institute for Social Innovation and Education Policy. So they're really unique ways of how the program and research supports applied knowledge in industry and development of training in organizations, learning and development, and research and development.
That sounds like a whole bunch of very wide range of skills that you had as a person in tech, and you have the social sciences background, education background, like probably normal people out there, like employers look at your background wouldn't think that, oh, you also know how to develop software. Like, how did you learn all that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And even after a PhD too, I enjoyed having what we call the lifelong learning approach, or learning journey, where as a scholar practitioner, what we kind of phrase in our program, learning different skills, whether it was data visualization or communication or science communication, where we really kind of broke down different data points and goals, whether it was quantitative or qualitative, and analyzed it and what that looked like in terms of shaping or developing needs. So, for example, in my dissertation, I took over 300 data points from feedback from students and what their challenges and struggles were with graduation and towards completion of their programs, and was able to come up with a framework that allowed it to be an ideal or easier process to understand and anticipate what the needs are. And one application of that could be a cloud or database that could help point out and prioritize what students need the most support or what clients need the most support in an organizational setting. And then I also earned some certifications in project management and data science for business leaders and others that help to further bridge those gaps and bridges of the understanding from research to industry.
So what, in terms of how did you get into consultant role? I think a lot of PhD really interested in getting into consultant role. Like, how did you get into it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So basically, I was invited to be a guest speaker by a colleague who was an educator for a classroom and a program that specifically helped students prepare for college. And I was in that same program when I was in high school, and actually graduated a little bit early for my undergraduate program in 3 years, thanks to a special high school program where I took college classes for free in high school, which I highly recommend. So I was going to talk to students who were 8th graders at the time, and about my career path and journey and what that looked like in education. And actually, after that guest speaking engagement, there was a parent who approached me and talked to me about some of the challenges they were having with their student and academically and as a whole. And I just offered them my card and contact info and asked if there was anything I could do to help support. And they later contacted me and invited me to a local community organization of parents and educators. And there I talked a little bit about my experience, and they offered for me to support their students academically by developing a personalized curriculum to help their students succeed. And that while we were working together, the next quarter, the student won awards for most improved. We was able to get a stronger foundation in math and other areas. And while I was running the program through the library and meeting with students, other individuals came up to me and asked, is there a way that you can help as well? We see the work that you're doing. And then internally in my program, while I was a doctoral student, I also had colleagues who were doing consulting independently, and they invited me to work on projects with them related to their organizations, just based on our engagement and interaction in our classes. So both on the organizational side and in the education side, kind of with a foot in both worlds, I was able to naturally just kind of go into it through conversations and people seeing the skills that were highlighted through our interactions.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of lessons there. I've been doing this series for a while, and then it's a lot about catching the opportunities when they arise, but you have to pave the road. Like, why would your colleague ask you and not another person to collaborate with you? It's probably a relationship you built beforehand, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a great question. I definitely am a big advocate and believer in relationship building. In fact, I remember in high school, I came across a book that talked about gatekeepers and what that meant for the field of education and opportunities and resources. And when I saw that, I thought about wanting to be a bridge builder in that sense. How do we connect people to opportunities or towards their full potential so that they could thrive? And even with my classmates, how some of us were we more connected on the technology side, more connected on the teaching or business side. When they reached out or asked for help or asked questions, I was, in a sense, kind of thought I was the go-to person for that, or was always glad to reach out to help other individuals with questions. And then in turn, they were able to help me understand what it looked like in terms of the full scope of education and that side of, and applied knowledge.
Yeah, it's such a good lesson, and then a lot of a common thing that we hear, especially from the consulting path, that the people who are successfully getting in are people who are really helpful to other people. Another question that I think a lot of us are wondering is, especially in a niche consultant, I don't know if I should call that, it's earning a potential.
Yeah, no, I think it's a helpful and important question because I like the idea of kind of learning from and with others. And I've been asked a similar question before. And a model that I've seen work well, particularly, is there are individuals who work full time while also continuing nonprofit or other works or project on the side, which is essentially what I did while I was doing my doctoral program. That was my main role at the moment, but I also had projects individually that I was working with consulting. And so I was used to kind of having a foot in both worlds in that sense. And the experience, I've heard of sometimes thinking of it in kind of two silos of the sense of being a specialist in terms of your skills or more of a generalist. But I always saw the benefit in pivoting a little bit back and forth between both, and being able to learn from and with others in that sense has been really helpful. And so I think while currently being in a fellowship and serving organizations on a broader level has really given me the full scope of anticipating, continuing to learn what the needs are as the fields develop or sectors evolve, and how different sectors combine, whether it's education and technology or the medical field and technology or finance and technology. And I think having a good idea of what it looks like from the inside of an organization and outside of one, and outside of the classroom, inside the classroom, can really help in that regard too. And I think building up over time a base of clients through those relationships can really also be helpful. For example, in my most recent role as an implementation manager, I actually knew some of the individuals from schools because they were part of my research program. They were alumni before, so I had somewhat of a rapport with individuals who were our official clients of the organization. And that led to, a lot of growth in terms of, 6 and 7 figures were able to invest some of their renewal of federal contracts to support their curriculum. But that's because I understood at a deeper level how their mission connected to, what their goals were, and working with some of the largest districts or the smallest districts. And so that background knowledge really helped me understand what unique needs were of each client and individual.
Thank you. That's a great lesson. It's probably also a patience. It will come kind of lesson. I interviewed quite a few of consultants that they can make 6-digit now. It doesn't happen in one day, right? But it sounds like you have so many things going on. Especially as a consultant, you're doing so many things at once. Like, do you have any tips on how do you manage your day with so many things going on?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for your question, and also just related to the previous question as well. I would say, depending on the sector a person's in, especially if it's related to nonprofit, a lot of the times those larger 6-7 figure contracts are through grants and federal grants, and what part of that grant supports a staff or supports a consultant can really vary too. But related to your most recent question, I would say that right now, I think juggling kind of an ideal flexible schedule of looking towards continuing to support organizations in full-time roles. I'm really enjoying the research fellowship aspect that does focus on the Institute for Social Innovation, because it's where do we find those connections amongst that interdisciplinary approach. So some of the universities I've worked with before are literally building spaces on campus where law students interact with business students, or social scientists interact with the engineering majors. And so some of the research projects that I'm doing or developing now in terms of how do we help train individuals to understand and anticipate needs from different perspectives, it's easy to integrate that because it all encompasses kind of the umbrella of the direction that I'm interested in. So a typical day for me would be like engaging with a client, or just earlier this week, I was, texting or in contact with a client via email about they wanted to develop for their nonprofit RSVP page that connected to a QR code that connected to their event. And so helping them to navigate each of those little steps along the way, and just being available for them, via phone or email to meet their deadlines and their goals. I think there's a flexibility in that's also really helpful. But at the same time, having that discipline or that framework of what it looks like, and that approach, from inside an organization in terms of, what those needs can be, and how do you build a persona of, a teacher who's using technology for the first time, a new platform, or a student who's using technology for the first time, or somebody who's really well versed in technology, really enthusiastic about it. So I think being able to understand those different perspectives helped me to navigate, and make it an easier or more efficient process to to kind of, get towards the goal of a project more quickly as a whole.
That's kind of tied into my next question. I ask this question to almost like every of our speakers. Is the pros and cons from your perspective of what you do? And I think audience usually want to know, like, okay, I'm different from the speaker. Would I like it? I want to know, like, what if it would be a fit for me? Like, could you elaborate a little bit more on the pros and cons? And what kind of personality might not be good for this or might be good for this?
Yeah, I would say assessing a fit might start with pretty different ideas. I used to always ask the students when they were applying. I started working in admissions and student services, and so I would see people want to become teachers or counselors apply for grad school in different roles. And essentially, in your statement, you're asked why, right? What is your why? And so a nice way of framing it, or a question I would ask students I was mentoring, and I still mentor students through doctoral programs and helping to read their research, would be vocation. Where do your talents, skills, and strengths meet your world, community, and society's greatest needs across whatever sector you're in, wherever your domain or foundational knowledge is in, or expertise? And a lot of that could be the coin, or kind of same side of the coin, of fulfillment and achievement. It could be, what do I enjoy about the current roles I've had and the past roles I've had? Kind of putting all those experiences together and thinking about what excites you to get up in the morning, about your current role or something that you hope to see in the future. And just really writing it all down and just recording it and reflecting about it. And I think that can really lead someone to think about whether their current opportunity they can grow in or move forward into something that better serves, their goals. And some of that reflection is what really helped me as well, too. And I would say that I've spoken with individuals who are thinking about, pivoting from teaching or pivoting into different types of roles. And I would say kind of, in a sense, dipping your toe in the water of getting experience of maybe working on a project outside of the classroom with a teacher who's also a consultant, or working with somebody or having a conversation with somebody who's in a role that you might see yourself in, to get a sense of what it's like from the inside of their experience, and seeing if that aligns with what your goals are and what your ideal experience would like to be, whether it's more flexibility or applying your knowledge in a different way or gaining new knowledge.
That's a very, very good advice. Like, I know, like, I've tried a consulting route, and then now I'm like totally give up on it because that just doesn't fit me. Like, I like somebody else, a big company, have a structure for me. But some people, totally love it with the freedom, right? So this is another thing. Like, now you're in both worlds, right? Right now you're living in both the academia and industry. Like, you're probably the best person to ask, like, what is the difference that you see from the two worlds?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed being able to use skills in an applied way. So, for example, working and collaborating with different teams that have different levels of knowledge at different points in a process. So, for example, the sales team would hand off to us, when a client was ready to move into the next step and implement the software or the program or curriculum. And so from there, it was our role to meet with the clients, to ask the right questions, to gather their needs, and then to gather data at different points in time in the year, mid-year, end year, to ensure that those data points and goals that they had initially set are on track. And so I think that research framework and purpose of learning how to ask questions and what types of questions, how to visualize the data in a way that's easily accessible for individuals who are really busy and, understand it from a higher level and a detailed level, what different needs are, was really helpful. And even working with the user experience team. So when we brought back feedback from our clients on the front line or front end of different ways that they felt that a program or software could be more intuitive, we're able to bring that feedback to our team to then help them develop and shape it in a way that was human-centered or student-centered, or that could listen to an individual who might be a multilingual learner and be able to anticipate the word that they're saying or trying to say or trying to read, and how that can be an even more efficient process based on what we currently have, and building upon those features in a way that really integrates and also excites users to engage even more with a software or a product or a program.
Another thing that I also find is, at least when I was in academia, all I do all day is go looking at my microscope, talking to my animals. It's not a lot of communication. Because my dissertation is my dissertation. But in industry, it's like communication demand is like all day long. Is that the same experience with you? Like, what would you recommend for people who like shifting the mindset or something?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's interesting you mentioned mindset, because one of the key factors of success that I came up with as part of a framework as a result of the analysis from my focus on my dissertation, which was helping students succeed at different levels, was shifting the mindset to growth mindset, and this idea that we can grow in any skill. And I noticed that it was at points in time, especially in writing the dissertation, deep into the research, easy to become isolated. So I had to be proactive in reaching out to colleagues and partnering with individuals, whether it was an accountability partner or even a topic that we found similar, reading each other's work, asking for feedback, and looking for those points, again, to build those opportunities really helped. So, for example, we had a poster session or research project opportunity every year, and it was usually as an individual researcher or student. And we asked, can we do this as a pair, as a team? Can we create a poster together? And they said, yes, you can. And just by simply asking that question, we later won the award for Best Research Project for the doctoral program for our team in School of Leadership Studies. And we presented it at a conference of scholars, gained their advice. And it was basically data that was looking at leadership and equity across sectors and across a framework of 10 years, building upon a data set that was globally publicly available and connected to what metrics do you look for in success and growth and policies. And we're able to visualize it, add QR codes, interactive elements, but really that aspect of being able to work together as a team, I think, made the result that much more helpful and just took it to the next level in that way. And similarly in industry, whether it's collaborating with the sales team and collaborating with the developers or engineers or the user experience team, all that knowledge together from different perspectives helps us to better anticipate the needs from different areas, and then just create an outcome or product that's even better towards reaching those needs or bridging those gaps.
So I'm so curious that what inspired you to do what you do today?
Thanks. Yeah, it's a great question. I would say that at one point in time, when I venture on campus, I was asked about what do you want your legacy to be, or to be known for in that sense, or the go-to person for. And I remember thinking about how I really enjoyed my experience on campus, learning in and outside of the classroom, and helping peers and other individuals navigate resources to also reach their potential. And one idea that really stuck with me is the one of being an informal and formal leader in different contexts. So even if an individual may not have a formal leadership title in an organization or a role, you're still kind of an ambassador, a representative, or a reflective of your own skills and all your experiences up until that point that you've learned in an organization or within your own experience or as a consultant. So I would say, even if someone doesn't have a formal title of leader, they can definitely be able to leverage their knowledge and being the go-to person and being able to connect that knowledge to different needs that will maybe lead them to be more formal leader later, or to contribute to teams in a unique and inspiring way.
So the next question I want to ask is, what is the growth opportunity in your career path that you've seen? Maybe like after this, what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's a great question, especially as a recent graduate. I'm very much looking forward to, excited to explore, seeking the support of organizations internally and how they can best understand the needs of populations equitably and inclusively, whether it's building a product or software for an individual or student with a learning difference, or who's using technology for the first time, or might be pivoting to a new stage in their life and trying to reframe their skills and looking for tools and resources to do that online. And so I would say that understanding it on a macro level or a wider level of what that looks like in the field. So for example, the field of education had a lot of funding this past few years from the government in terms of government funding and resources. And for a lot of fields that the landscape of it might change a little bit depending on if it's education technology or medical technology or finance and technology. And of course, we've heard a lot about AI and how that might change the landscape of what funding looks like or capabilities look like. And I would say staying involved in those opportunities, whether it's signing up for a newsletter or going to a session or a conference, continuing those conversations and being a part of those ways to engage with organizations, both internally and externally, and just staying connected to how continuing to build skills as a lifelong learner can really contribute to organizations and to finding those needs and to supporting them towards organizations and individuals reaching their full potential.
And the next question, I think is a little bit related, is any advice for academics who have never touched industry before?
Yeah, good question. I would say finding those connections of those conversations where those conversations can build into opportunities. Like, for example, I was introduced to both faculty who work in industry and in academia through conferences. So my school recommended the Academy of Management or the International Leadership Association, where many of their themes or focus areas are literally how do you take business knowledge in and outside of the classroom to include a process or a policy or a best practice, and they're cross sectors from law to to biomedical technology to finance. So I think just finding those spaces might make it even easier to kind of build upon those opportunities, whether it's an internship, which might lead to consulting and might lead to that next industry role.
Because you mentioned something about internship that really get my curiosity. What are those turning points that enable you to transition into industry?
Yeah, those are good questions, because I feel like at some point in time there are internships built into some programs with experiential learning, especially with particular fields like teaching or counseling, where you have a built-in practicum and you have a built-in mentor. And there are other programs that might not, right? Maybe an MBA that's building upon your current knowledge in the field or your current experience. And what I would say or advice to individuals would be to somewhat make your own internship if there isn't already one integrated into it, going out and asking questions, volunteering your knowledge and your time and your skills, and really learning and building upon that is really what helped me as well. And the same organization that was with my first consulting project, they later asked me to lead the launch of their website with new features that would help parents and students navigate, registering for different events in the community and their college readiness programs and their award ceremonies, and resources for the community. So really one thing led to another through asking about those opportunities and ways to bridge those gaps or ways that your skills can help. And I think seeking those out are really ways to help people build their own opportunities, even though they're not maybe presently built or they're structured into a program.
So I really see a lot of theme here that you talked about today. It's you create these opportunities, you create your own world and your own future. You take charge, right?
Yeah, being proactive. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So, I would like to ask, any final advice you want to leave with our audience?
Yes, definitely. I've enjoyed the conversation today, and I would just say that staying motivated through keeping track, writing out your wins, right, and your goals. So whether it's doesn't necessarily have to be in an official CV format, just a list of what went well this week or different projects that you're proud of, whether it's in your dissertation data or in your internship or something that you've done in industry or connected to industry, will really help you shape what those transferable skills can be and look like, and what skills that an individual have to offer, whether it's in industry or in research and development or learning and development, and deciding what next steps to take and to pivot those skills and to bridge that gap or those needs from academia into industry.
Yeah, thank you, Leesa. We're so happy to have you today. And thank you for your story and words of wisdom. Everyone, if you like today's episode, please subscribe and click like down below. We'll be back with more stories to help you with your career transition.